Welcome to my channel, Exploring Chess. Let's start exploring. Hi there. Welcome to episode 3 of the chess opening series. In episode 2, we looked at an opening which is actually a gambit. So we looked at the Danish gambit. If you remember, a gambit is when you sacrifice a piece to usually gain something else, but that's called a sacrifice. A gambit, it will be to gain usually positional advantage. In this video though, we're going to be covering a very popular defense played mostly at the Grandmaster level, tournaments, and almost every friendly game. It's a pretty good opening, and it's many people's main openings. I used to play this opening too, just like I played the Danish Gambit. So, let's get into the video. Sicilian defense is named for black, so it's usually black who is called that's playing the Sicilian defense. As far as I've learned, if you play the Sicilian defense when you're white, then it's usually called the English opening. So let's get into the lines of the opening. It's not too long, but you don't need to memorize it either. Like most openings, this opening doesn't start off with the moves e4, e5. Those, in beginners' perspectives, might be the best moves, but there are many other possibilities. For example, it's the Sicilian defense. This opening starts with e4, of course, but black responds to it playing c5. Next, white promotes its knight, playing knight to f3, attacking the e5 square and developing its knight. Black responds with a move, d6, and then white plays d4. Remember, this g4 square is protected by the knight. So right now you might think, well, these two pawns are owning the center. But that's not always the case. This pawn is owning that square, and this pawn can basically own that square. It's equal on this square. So after d4, we have cx d4. So the pawn captures. After that, we have knight x d4, so the knight captures back. And then we have knight to f6, which is developing black's knight over here. After knight to f6, we have c3, where this pawn moves up here. c3, then we have g6, which is over here. After g6, we have bishop to e2. So you can see a lot of developing and pawn structures going through the game over here. So after that, black responds to it with bishop to g7. Bishop g7 is that move. After bishop g7, we have both sides castle. I mean, of course, the white side castles. And then the knight goes out. And then while white can play something like knight to d2. And then black can castle. And so there we have it, the main lines of the Sicilian defense. And it looks pretty complicated, but it should not be too hard. I mean, it's not like you have to memorize these opening lines. This is the variation that many players play nowadays. But now, let's look at the variation that I actually learned, which is kind of different. And you just need to memorize the moves for black because, well, it's an opening. And you don't need to memorize the ways white responds to. If you do memorize the ways white responds to, that can get into more intermediate level, where you actually start memorizing stuff and looking at what your opponent's playing. So let's say you play e4 and you know what you're going to play if he plays e5. You know what he's going to play if you're going to play if you play c5, and well, so on. So let's look at the opening variation. Let's get into it. We're going to play just for black, and that starts off with playing c5, and then we back it up with this pawn by moving this pawn, back up this pawn by moving this pawn, and then we develop our knight, and then we get out our bishop, and then we get out our queen over here. After that, on the other side, we start developing by creating what I like to call a powerhouse. So knight goes here, then bishop goes here, and black castles. And usually you can move both the rooks into the center to attack the center file. After that, you can promote these pawns, you can respond to any threats. That's the main course of the opening. I'm not sure what this opening is called, I couldn't find it, but I'm pretty sure it's just the classic opening. So the same thing played on the other side for white it's called the English opening. And what it's played on black, it's called the Sicilian. So let's just put those rooks in the center. Because the rooks in the center will occupy one of the most expensive, I like to call it, files, which are E and D. One thing I learned, you can look at each pawn files as, let's say, the two on the edges, the least expensive. Let's say, I don't know, 10 cents. The ones on the B files and the G files over there and here are a little more. You know, you can say something like 30 cents. These ones can go up to $1. And these ones are the main pawns you use in the game. So they can go up to even maybe $10, who knows. They can be really costly in the game. And remember, every pawn that's on the board right now can be a future queen. And the endgame you can promote. So, well, that's a Sicilian defense for you. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to hit the bell. Thank you.